So how do you handle uncertainty? You can't even turn on the news or look at anything nowadays without seeing so much disruption in the marketplace. And today's guest is going to help us navigate through uncertainty and how to thrive during that. So please welcome to the show, my friend and colleague, Meridith Elliott Powell, or as I call her, Mer. But anyway, hey, Meridith, glad to be here.
I'm excited to be here, Ford. Thanks.
So I know we were talking in the green room and I said, okay, I need a show opening. And you were like, here's what it is. So I want you to just dive into what you were just sharing with me.
Yeah, well, wow. I mean, you kind of nailed it with your opening. You turn on the news, you read a newspaper, you head to Twitter, and all you see is the uncertainty in the marketplace. We've got inflation. We've got rising interest rates. We're all worried about what the Fed's going to do. What's going to happen with, corporate debt coming through? What about our own debt as a country? And you just sit there and think, this is like trying to grow a business with a blindfold on, right? Something else is coming, but what is it going to be and how is it going to impact you? And I think you need to learn to see uncertainty as a positive, or you're not going to be able to navigate today's marketplace.
So what are some things? And for those listeners, we are live right now on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And Meridith and I share the stages at franchise organizations, corporations, associations. We're both Hall of Fame keynote speakers. So we've got our little shameless plug. All of our domains are sitting on the screen here. And if you're listening to the podcast, you can find Meridith at Meridith Elliott, pronounce it cleanly, meridithelliottpowell.com. Hey, Meridith, do you have a shorter URL? I'm just using from a marketing.
I actually do. Just go to valuespeaker.com. Just the word
That's what I was, because when we were making the overlay slides, I'm like, I know she's got to have a URL. So value speaker.
That's it. Just the words value and speaker.com.
All right. Valuespeaker.com. All right. That sounds great. Anyway, so let's go back to the topic of today, talking about uncertainty, talking about all the challenges that are facing small businesses. And we know that there's, the economic challenges, the workforce challenges, the price supply chain challenges, the competitive challenges. Now you've got AI taking over the world and, all those challenges and Google's Bard just came out. So bard.google.com, you can go get a Bard account. So if you want to test it against ChatGPT, I mean, there's so much disruption.
Yeah.
When you speak to the organizations and you do your high-end consulting, where do you tell people to start? I mean, because they're in victimhood. How do you change them from victimhood to seeing this as an opportunity?
Well, it's a couple of things. I mean, the reason I started to speak about uncertainty was long before the marketplace started to shift, way back in 2018 and 19. We can remember when things were hot and good. Everybody was still worried about uncertainty. And I just started to study it. And what you need to understand about uncertainty is if you don't shift your mindset around it, if you don't believe that uncertainty can lead to opportunity, uncertainty is going to produce one emotion in you and your team and your customers. And that emotion is fear. And fear is the emotion you do not want because it shuts down innovation and creativity, the very skill you need to get through uncertainty. It shuts down engagement, and all of that negatively impacts bottom line results. Now, the flip of that, Ford, is if you can begin with your mindset to believe that uncertainty leads to opportunity, it's going to drive innovation and creativity. And we saw that in the middle of COVID, right? We got so creative, it was crazy. That drives engagement. It gets people excited, motivated. They go all in. And those two drive results. I'm going to say one more thing, and I know I'm being long-winded.
We're open. Go for it.
But the biggest thing that I have learned from studying organizations and leaders that have thrived through uncertainty, thrived through world wars, economic depression, is that success is not logical. It does not belong to the person or the organization that has the most resources, the best product, the cheaper prices, the best geographic location. It belongs to the leader who can master their mindset and believe that uncertainty can lead to opportunity. So you have to begin there.
Yeah, I certainly believe that it's all about mindset, right? I mean, when I speak it, we always have the three buckets. We have the mindset, the strategies, and the tactics. If they don't have the mindset dialed in, all the strategies and tactics in the world aren't going to help them, right?
Help you.
Okay, so they've understood. So they've got to shift their mindset from victimhood to being a victor. They need to be able to identify and realize that uncertainty is actually an opportunity. And so if you're a leader of an organization or an owner, where should they start? I mean, they have to clean up their own backyard before they clean up the neighborhood. So what are a couple things that they should do? And then what are some things that they can use with their management and staff to help move them through that uncertainty? Because there's so much disruption. There's all the labor that gets lost.
Yeah. Well, the thing that we hate about uncertainty, and the reason we hate it, is because we feel out of control. The very thing that we want is the very thing we can't have in the middle of an uncertain marketplace. And so when I was doing the research and I put together this 9-step methodology, this proven formula for thriving in uncertainty, one of my favorite strategies is strategy number 2, and it should be done with your team. And the strategy is called condition yourself for change. And the idea is that it isn't the optimist that will survive in uncertainty. It isn't the pessimist, but it's the realist. And you've got to embrace the suck. And that means that you start to think about change before change is coming. We use a tool for this called a skeptic. And it's just a matter of gathering your team together and start to brainstorm the shifts and changes that you see coming in the marketplace. What changes do you see happening with society? What changes do you see happening with competition? How are your customers changing? How's technology changing? And then simply asking yourself the question, what, if any of those changes, do we need to be paying attention to now? And what happens with that, Ford? You talked about the team is your team will start to go, wow, rather than feeling disempowered by change, they're starting to feel like they have some kind of say. They're saying, wow, technology is changing us this way. Maybe these are some things that we should do in our company. Our competition is really struggling. Maybe we should shift our sales pipeline to focus more on their customers. You can't exacts when it comes to change, but if you can predict the changes that are coming in the marketplace, it keeps you agile. And if you are agile, it's far easier to change when a new disruption impacts the marketplace. So you don't even have to guess right. But if you can allow your team to talk about change, then they feel like they have some control over what's happening.
All right. So that's a good strategy. And so let's talk a little bit about the tactics of that. So obviously bringing your team together, setting some ground rules, and brainstorming. And so for effective brainstorming, everybody has done this before, but it's worth a quick review, right? So you're going to set a time limit. You're going to put somebody in charge who's not political, right? You can't have the president or the manager in charge because no one's going to say anything. If you have a culture that doesn't recognize creativity, then have everybody come in with a pre-printed sheet of their ideas or colored Post-it notes, obviously the same color. Set a time limit, set the person in charge that's not political, take all the good ideas, go for quantity over quality, and then you can sort and chunk and prioritize. So the only reason I'm putting that in there is everybody hears about brainstorming, but when was the last time that organizations really sat down and said, okay, here's our topic. We're going to draw it on the whiteboard or put it in the conference room table on a TV. This is our outcome. Here's what we're going to do. And then having the rules, right? So having rules that encourage no editing, because if someone gives out an idea, and me, you and I are on committees together, you're running and you're in a very prestigious, you're incoming president for the National Speakers Association and all the things you do in your role. And you and I, you've had to slap my hands a few times because I'm editing before being all inclusive. So we'll leave it like that. So there's rules to brainstorming. So what Meridith is saying here is, obviously she does this and she facilitates this for organizations of all sizes, but where you should start is to identify, is it more like a SWOT analysis where you're doing it strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats?
Yeah, pretty much. It's and we'll put in the show notes a copy of the Skeptic tool. It's just one of my favorite tools, but everything you said is absolutely right. Set a time limit of 20 minutes. Get your head out of your business. Ask the people who work with you, what are the shifts that they see coming in the marketplace? And then simply ask yourself, and as you said, no wrong answers. Because part of it is to literally start to see the changes that are coming in the marketplace, make change while you have the time, energy, and resources to do it. But I think almost more importantly is giving people a voice. And in the face of uncertainty, people feel unheard and they feel scared. And the moment that they get to say, I'm worried about this, or I see this shift, they engage. And you are going to need every member of your team, all hands on deck, if you are going to thrive in uncertainty.
Yeah, I know that one of the things I'm known for is I like to say, and I don't know where I heard it years ago, but if you're asking the wrong question, the answer doesn't matter. So make sure when you're doing your brainstorming sessions or any, sales and marketing or, research question, that the question, how you phrase the question can determine the outcome of the feedback you get. So, you don't want to ask your question, how come we can't get customers? You want to ask a better question, what do we need to add more value? I mean, how do you add more value and make a profit? I mean, Meridith's website, valuespeaker.com, right? I mean, I always talk about people. I tell people that, look, there's no such thing as a money problem, only an idea problem. If you want to make more money, you have to add more value and have better ideas. So start there. So dealing with uncertainty. So the action steps, just to kind of benchmark level set where we're at. One, uncertainty is here to stay. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
I think there's only going to be more disruption going forward.
I agree. 100%.
You need to prepare yourself with the tools and your resources. So visit Meridith's website, check her out, connect with her on LinkedIn, or connect with us on this show. Put things in the show comments below, and we'll be answering them as we can. And then also connect with her afterwards on anything that you're dealing with in your organization, because she specializes in dealing with that. I mean, yes, everybody can help you navigate through, but you want a specialist. And that's one of the things that's amazing about experts is there's no excuses nowadays. There's an expert on every topic that you possibly could think of, but you want to vet the experts and make sure they're actually, because anybody with a laptop calls themselves an expert nowadays. So you got to be very careful of who's really an expert. All right. So we know that they can brainstorm. We know you've got this tool. We know you've got 9 steps. What resources can they put in their mental toolbox to keep their mindset strong when they have disaster happen in their personal lives or professional lives? And that disaster could be business. It could be something small or big. Where should they start to navigate through that?
Yeah, when we talk about having a vision for your company, and that, really when it comes down to your mindset, is you literally have to put down on a piece of paper, on a note card, where you see your business, your life, your health, your finances a year from now. And you have to train your brain to see that. I call it a relentless vision. So right now you're in my office in Asheville, North Carolina. And if you got up with me in the morning, you would see that the very first thing I do is read my vision. I read it again at lunch, and I read it again before I shut my office down at night. I have to be so focused on that I'm conditioning my brain to find opportunity. But I'm going to keep going with, your theme of helping the team forward is that you have to share that vision relentlessly with the team. Only 2% of the population is visionary. 12% are strategic thinkers. The rest of us are tactical. We can only see what is right in front of us. It's why we get stuck in the face of uncertainty, because we only see the obstacles. And that's why you need a leader who can help you see past why you need to keep going. When you think of our most successful political leaders, I mean, I'm not really sure Martin Luther King Jr. was a political leader, but maybe. But when he painted the I Have a Dream speech, he gave people a reason to keep fighting for civil rights at a time when they probably wanted to give up. The cost was too high. Thank God we don't have to be Martin Luther King Jr., but we do have to, let's assume that we do go into a deep recession. You got to give people a reason to keep going, to keep trying, to keep calling. And it begins with that vision. But it isn't something you just do, put on a cup and give people a cup of coffee. You got to be talking about it and preaching it. And that may seem trite, but it is so powerful in that very first piece. And when you do that, again, to your point, once you level set that, every other tactic, tool, and strategy that I've got in the toolbox. And again, we're going to give your audience the QR code to get all 9 strategies, all the information they need to be successful. All the rest will work. But that's the one piece I can't and Ford can't do for you. You got to condition your mind that opportunity is always out there. I can tell you from history, though, that every single crisis we have ever faced in this world, people have succeeded out the other side. And study that and take a lot of confidence from that.
Yeah. So first of all, relentless vision. Totally agree. I have my vision board in my bathroom. I listen to Audible books on the way to my office, yours included. I also have on our mouse pads, everybody has our vision, our mission, and our core values. I've learned recently by some experts that we have too many core values, that we need to make them simpler. So I'll be updating that next time, because I had a person who's like, no, you can't have 9, you need 3. I'm like, all right, whatever. But I do have a relentless vision. And I think it's really important to recognize that, we all get off track. and we all have to have our
Yeah.
success library or our success network. So people like you are in my success network. I know I can call you. I can say, hey, Mayor, I'm having a challenge with this. I'm having a challenge with a team member. I'm dealing with this, and you've helped tremendously. And so it's really important that our listeners look at who is in their sphere of influence, who is in their success network. Do they have a relentless vision that keeps them focused on what they can do? Because I agree. If you look at, people are all freaking out now about ChatGPT and about AI. I don't want to change the topic, but they're freaking out.
Yeah,
I mean,
true.
I'm getting hired now. I just got booked for next week for an association to speak. They called and said, can you speak on the topic? And well, I've done a dozen presentations on it. Sure. But everybody's freaking out. They're like, and the studies are showing that 42% of companies that are using it have already made employee changes. Some people are being more productive, and some people they're having to let go because of certain jobs that are being taken over. So talk about uncertainty, just what's going on with technology, not including the political environment we're in and the cities and the political, just everything. I'm not, this is not political, and this is for educational and informational purposes only. We are not giving you legal advice. So don't anybody give me any crap. All right. So we know that we have to have a relentless vision, excuse me. We know that we can ask better questions. We know we're going to put the QR code in the show notes below. So Alex, I'm not going to switch the camera to you right now, but he's listening. He's listening right off screen. Go ahead and wave, Alex. You're here. Okay. So he'll make sure he makes sure the sounds and everything is working good. So we'll make sure we get that out to the listeners. All right. What else would you tell organizations today? And I know you're busy speaking. You're probably running off to an airplane today to go to another event, which I'm sure you are. What else? What closing thoughts would you give people on? They have uncertainty. They know they have a relentless vision. They've done their brainstorming, but now they actually have to. Well, I'm going to ask you a different question as I was thinking out loud, and everybody's listening to my brain fart. What do you do if you have people on your team that are anchors or negative, that are disrupting the growth, and they're living in uncertainty and fear as opposed to transitioning? What ideas would you have for an organization, maybe a franchise brand that has employees that maybe aren't on that positive side of thought, and they're always on the victimhood negative side?
Yeah, well, number one, I mean, you've got to ask yourself as a leader, have you painted the vision? Have you given them every opportunity to see the positive side of it? But I'm going to answer that question with a couple of different strategies in here. Number one is, you brought up your values. And your values are critical. One of the most fascinating things I found from doing the research was companies that thrive in uncertainty, leaders that thrive, make every single decision according to their core values. I mean, you're talking about ChatGPT, we're talking about inflation, we're talking about the political environment. We don't have a clue what's going to happen 30 days from now. So how do you make a decision when all this insanity is happening? Well, you make a decision according to your core values. Everything has to be aligned with your core values. So I would argue another strategy is to strengthen your team. And strengthening your team means more than the skill base that the people that work for you have. You have to make sure that the people who work with you align with your values. Now, what you have to do is sit down and say, going forward, we're going to grade you according to your performance and according to your alignment with our core values. And going through that and saying, this is what we're looking for when we're looking for this core value. This is what we're looking for when we're looking for this particular core value. And I would argue that people who are stuck in the negativity, people who are drowning out the rest of the team, people who are negative with their customers, don't align with your core values. And if they don't align with your core values, they don't belong on your team. And that is, it is a hard mindset in today's environment to go, oh my God, I just need a breathing body. Now you want me to get somebody off my team? But this doesn't come from me. This comes from Jack Welch back in the day when General Electric used to be the company. And when you put people on your team that align with your core values, your drama goes way down and your customer experience and your profitability goes way up. One other thing with that, if you do the same thing with your customers, if you look into your customers and only choose customers that align with your core value, you will work less and increase your profitability. Your core values are very powerful. So that would be my suggestion. Number one, do they know the core values? Have you communicated that? Have they seen the vision? If they have, you have done all you can do as a leader to get them on the right side of uncertainty. And if they choose not to, send them to your competitors and get them a job.
Yeah, I like to say, free them up for new opportunities to be someone else's challenge. So I like that. I was actually taking notes. So I'm going to make sure that our management here understands we want to grade by performance, but we also want to grade in the alignment to the core values, making sure that the company from the top down is doing that. Only quality people. I learned that from Les Brown in the 90s. If you have people on your team, one bad apple can spoil the whole bunch. And unfortunately, sometimes you got to take an inventory and you have to look at who do you want to free up for new opportunities. And the same thing with clients. We call it a PITA fee when we're doing a proposal. If we pain in the butt, so I won't say the other word. It is my show, so I can say what I want. But there are clients who when you're working with them and or if you're interviewing them, trying to determine what their needs are, and you're on a discovery call, and they're just difficult or they're not taking advice.
Yeah,
I pass on those and. They wonder, they're like, well, what's wrong with my money? I said, no, I'd love to earn your business, but I just know that you're going to be unhappy. And it's usually the clients that you give the best deal to. It's like, okay, they negotiate, they want to feel a win. So you give them 10% off or something. And next thing you know, they're the biggest pains because they're never going to be happy at any fee. So, my thought is always like, even when we talk about speaking, and our speaking fees are not cheap. Everybody on this watching this can go Google Meridith and our fees. They're not cheap, but they shouldn't be. They're paying us for our expertise and our insights, not the number of minutes that we're speaking. And when anybody says, well, we can find someone cheaper, I always think, you can have their rates or our results, right? I mean, it's all about delivering the real value. And so, a lot of great information on today's episode. I can't wait for you you'll put the QR code on and we'll make sure we put it in the show notes so people can download it. Any closing thoughts that you want to say? But first of all, I want to tell you, thank you for making time in your busy schedule to join us on Fordify Live and on the Business Growth Podcast. I do appreciate it. You're still doing your show on Saturdays with Mark Hunter, or are you?
Yeah, we do still Sales Logic every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern. It's an honor to be on here with you. I could talk about this all day long. I guess if I had a closing thought, it's this. I mean, I am passionate about helping people believe that even with all the disruption in the marketplace, it can still be your best year on record. But you have to understand that growing in the face of uncertainty is different. And that's why I wrote the methodology. That's why I wrote the formula. That's why I did the research. And all of it, all you've got to do is go to the QR code. You get everything for just listening to today's show.
Perfect. Well, we go live, everybody, Wednesdays at 11 a.m. Central on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. So this has been Ford Saeks and Meridith Elliott Powell. It's a hard one to say phonetically. Just go to valuespeaker.com. I really appreciate you being here. Thanks again.